of sites on set of Zope instances. Maybe not as much as WordPress, but considering that you're sharing the code of the CMS, it's pretty good. So I'm really good at vaporware. I got halfway through running this. I haven't quite finished it, but basically this is the idea of having a package which changes the front page of Zope. So you know how in Plone we've overridden the Zope front page. This does the same thing, except what it's doing is allowing anonymous people to sign up for a site. You don't have to have an admin set. So the idea is that we can install Zope now. You put it on a box, then you tell everyone where it is, and they can sign up and get a site straight away. So we've got, that would make cloud truly out of the box. And it's pretty simple code. So through the web, I was reminded in Paul's talk this morning of the first time I actually got into Python. I was working at Bell Labs, and I downloaded this Zope thing, and we were into cheap-ass games. Anyone played cheap-ass games? It's this awesome mail order service where you get these awesome kind of games, and it had this great real-time card game called Falling. So the first app I ever built, I implemented a real-time card game using ZODB transactions to kind of do the arbitrage between the different things. And it was very cool. And it was maybe 20 lines of Python in a Python script with a little sort of text-based UI. And very, very simple to build. And I could do that without understanding any complicated things like build out or how to deploy it or anything like that. So this through the web code, it's got a lot of bad press, and it's got a lot of negatives. These are the 4 kind of biggest negatives I've seen about through the web. So no version control. That's definitely a potential problem. It's nice to be able to keep the code and go back in revisions and stuff, and ZODB code doesn't have really proper version control. You can't use your normal development tools. It worked different than the file system code. So what you get this learning curve where you'd learn how to do it using Python scripts and things like that, and then suddenly you realize I want a little bit more. I need something more complicated, and suddenly you're learning a whole different set of techniques in order to do the code. And then you had problems with restricted Python. There's only so much you could do. However, it had one really, really, really big benefit, is that lots and lots and lots of people came across Python and Zope through the web thing. It's accessible, it's convenient. You can start and get going. You can have an online service and start programming straight away. Through the web is more convenient than, say, App Engine. App Engine, you still have to download their SDK. You still have to install a few things, learn how to deploy it. So through the web code, I think, is the winner here out of all those, because I think all of those things can be overcome in some way or another. So the Dulwich project's really interesting. The Dulwich project is a pure Python implementation of Git, both server and client, and it's well maintained, and it has, I think Google's contributing it to quite a bit. So I started having a play with that. It supports the HTTP protocol. Not so you can do sort of full pushes and everything via HTTP. Multiple backends, so you can have, it has a file store, but it also has this memory store so that you can use the memory part and keep the whole kind of Git server running in memory if you want. That's the Dulwich project, if you want to have a look. If you don't get the reference, Dulwich is actually the village at which from a Monty Python skit, I think. So I started playing with this. You can see this. This was a funny story. I tried to commit this yesterday. You might have seen in the collective. There was the collective, and it was just Plone. So GitHub has this problem. It takes off the .git at the end. So I originally called it plone.git, and it made a big mess. Thank you to Nutjob for fixing that. So how this could work, right, this package. So you could branch, you can go into plone.app.theming, you could branch your theme. Instead of doing a copy, you just create a branch. Then you go into, say, a static thing in your local build out. We can do a git pull. We can just pull down that new branch that we created. Then we can start developing it. We can run a local service. We can edit the theme and so on. Then we do a git push straight back up. And as soon as we do a push, it does a checkout straight away. Yeah, so it's integrating with Plone.resources, so it's purely for the theme stuff. Don't get too excited. This doesn't work yet. This is more vaporware. So that's the package. I did the smart HTTP stuff out of the DOH. I got that working, so that view is there, and it takes the different parameters and stuff like that. The only next part, so to turn that memory object store into ZODB objects. So the idea is not some previous integrations with Git and Zope was trying to actually map Zope versions and history onto Git versions and stuff. This is not that. This is sticking a Git repository as into multiple objects in the ZODB, and then you would have all those versions there, and then you would check out from that. Wasteful in terms of memory and stuff, but all I want is to be able to push code up and pull code down. So this is what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about a manifesto for how we go forward with Plone, how we become a winner in this very, very competitive CMS space. And this is where it gets a little bit controversial, maybe. So this is something we've been following the last year. This is the rules that my company has been working by. So we don't deploy any site-specific code anymore. We don't create eggs, which have profiles in them. We don't create themes in eggs, or we at least don't deploy those. So the second rule is no site-specific code in eggs. So Diazo, we develop it locally in eggs so that we can have the file system develop locally, and then we just deploy the zips when we want to deploy. Great, you don't need to bring the servers down. It's a lot. We don't need to run build out on our production servers. It's quite nice. For application stuff, we've been using Plone quite a lot when we want different databasey type stuff, and we're finding more and more uses for it. It's kind of like Django inside Plone. It's a little bit rough around the edges in some bits, but it's incredibly powerful and reasonably easy to understand. So for template code, Erica was asking me, what if you want to create a new view for an item? Well, we created listing views as one way to do that. The idea with listing views is to create you basically just list, I want this field, I want this tel expression, and you have two options. You can have it on top of one content type. So you just use the display menu. Once you created the view in the control panel, you use a display menu, and you add it and say, I want this display. And then from there, it's the standard HTML, always kind of displayed using the same tags, and use Diazo to rearrange it any way you want. So for example, if you want the publish date, which isn't on a news item, you could just use this. Theming plugins with the tel overrides and stuff is also another solution. I think there's a better solution in all of this that we could have for doing through the web type things, and I'd rather it avoid templates. But and then what we've done is we've really tried to sort of cut back the kind of the building. We're using building blocks like Plone or portlet pages or things that allow us to sort of customize that we customize with Diazo. So yeah, all of these sites that we've developed in the last year or made modifications to are all following those rules. So, and I want to go through a little bit of a case study. This is one that we've been working on quite a bit lately. So this is New South Wales came out with this new legislation that every single swimming pool in a 6-month period, which ends in 3 weeks, by the way, has to be registered. So they estimate there's 350,000 swimming pools in New South Wales, Australia. So the idea is they get registered and they get inspected and less kids die. So it was remarkably a lot more complicated than we thought. There's a lot of stuff in behind. The public registrations bit is simple. It's only a few pages, but we're doing inspections. We're doing like user approvals. Each council has a set of users. They have super users who approve the other users. And then the super users are approved by the DLG, which is the governing body across all the different councils. And There's pull details. You can do view whole history auditing of all the changes to the pull records and so on. This is kind of cool. This is using Go Mockingbird behind that. This is a Google chart, but you click through to each of those. We mocked up the UI for each of the different forms and got them signed off that way. Yep, so it's used by 150 councils in New South Wales. Now, Plomino, well, this is the nice thing I really like about Plomino. That's how you create a form. You use these buttons here. You can create a new field. Creates the field for you. You say it's like a numeric field. You can put in some code and so on. Gives complete control over the layout of the field form, which is very different than Plone Form Gen, where it's just in a linear list. There's the theme is there, and what's really interesting is that all the certificates, we generate PDF certificates for pool owners and stuff. That's all using Diazo. So that's again, we can hand that over to the council, to the government, and say, go modify your own templates. You want to add a few extra words in there, they can add it straight into the template here. So it's combining a Plomino form with a template and then doing PDF generation. And the code's all there as well. So if we really need to make a small change to the code, mostly what we're doing is we're developing it all locally. We're doing full acceptance tests using Robot Framework locally. And then we take that zip file and we deploy the whole lot. So we deploy the application like you would a theme. So we did deploy some code, but as I said, we try to make it generic. So with the PDF generation, unfortunately, the way sub requests work, etc., we had to modify it a little bit so that it included Diazo. That wasn't in. We couldn't get Diazo working with the PDF generation without doing that bit. That one's kind of misnamed. We'll probably release that because it's pretty Plone. It's not specific to Plomino. This collective pfg.signup is kind of cool. It's a module for PFG. It's a save adapter that creates users and allows you a workflow to say this group of users is allowed to approve these other group of users. So all the users get created and then they jump into the Plomino application. Again, so that's an idea of something that's very generic, a little bit of configuration. And yeah, there was some extra stuff we had to get imported because of issues with restricted Python. We just stuck that all into Plomino lib. Victorian SES, it's another example. It's mainly a content side, but it includes an application for caravan planning, emergency. They get same sort of thing. A PDF gets generated as part of it. But yeah, we use listing views in there as well. And so, yep, that was what I talked about before. That's the configuration of listing views. You've got the item fields. These are things taken from the current context of the item. And then if that context happens to be a folder or that context happens to be a collection, then it will also list all of these. And then you've got this editor where you can edit these custom fields and they can be tell expressions. So we've done complex sites and we've done them completely without deploying any customer-specific eggs. So in conclusion, why this is good for government? All our clients are pretty much government, so I'm going to talk about it from that perspective. So they love the cloud. Governments love the cloud. They love handing responsibility to someone else and having a contract and saying, you guys host it, and we just pay you X amount, and we'll choke your throat if it all goes wrong. So they love SLAs and stuff like that. They can also, cloud services allow governments to try without consultation. They can go in there and they can try it out. Problem is if they get in consultants, if they want to talk to you and you suddenly become, then there's an accusation that maybe you're sort of influencing their decision before they're properly evaluated. They like to evaluate things in their own time, in their own way. And cloud stuff allows them to do that to some extent. They love fixed price contracts, but there's a big problem with fixed price contracts is that if they want code changes, if something like that, then